For the first, let me welcome back to the European Parliament my dear friend Malcolm Harbour, who has been for me a mentor and a great leader. And Malcolm, you have been a game changer. You have been a game changer in the progress that we have achieved over the 10 years you've been chairing the Internal Market Committee. And it's been a great learning and important for me to serve under your leadership. Thank you for everything you have been doing, not the least launching the Internal Market Act 1 and 2, where the Parliament has started to take the initiative to drive the agenda, to ask the Commission to present proposal for us to reduce burden, borders, and barriers for free movements in Europe, for all the free movement in Europe. Let me tell you that I am an entrepreneur. I have created, founded, and run 2 companies, starting from Parma. I am originally Italian and elected in Sweden for the EPP group. And I have learned the hard way that the internal market was not functioning 15 years ago when we were told you can sell from Italy to Sweden on the net. And I share your frustration. I think, Mr. Chairman, I would have voted exactly as the majority has been voting in terms of the obstacles that are unacceptable because they're depriving the people of Europe of jobs. They're depriving us of competitiveness. They are depriving you to become the global champions that Europe so badly needs. And this has been the ground driving force for me to serve 8 years in this Parliament, to look with the glasses of small companies would look, and to try to have feet in the ground and see that everything we do has to be based in reality. Have we succeeded? Apparently not. Who to blame? The member states. I think Malcolm was very clear on that. I have 18 questions, Mr. Chairman. I intend to answer to all because they were all relevant. They were all important, and everyone deserves an answer. To our British friend, of course, Brexit has been for us a great shock, and I belong to those who would like to keep in a constructive, positive, long-term looking relationship as much as possible with all the people of Great Britain, with definitely the single market in my view. To our French, je vais donner beaucoup de problèmes.
Perhaps I'm going to confuse the interpreters now by changing language. I'd like to say to our French friend over there, who said that as a priority, the competitiveness of European businesses must be the focus when over external companies. I think that our duty here is to produce legislation that is minimalistic, which provides European companies with the possibility of competing on a level playing field. We're not talking about leaving others out. Rather, it's about ensuring that people can be competitive with legislation that does not pose obstacles. And of course, among the points that you mentioned, REACH, which admittedly was very controversial, I think
Ça va être la compétitivité.
I think that here we're talking about future competitiveness. Obviously, this has an impact in the short term, and in the long term, it might represent an advantage. But perhaps we're not doing enough to set up the Small Business Act, which is a continual system for revising legislation and monitoring of legislation to ensure that it is not an obstacle for small and medium enterprises.
From Croatia, Dobar dan. Well, we launch our own laws to protect companies. Yes, we have, and it came out also in questions and comments from other prominent friends and colleagues here from Czech Republic and other Eastern European countries. You have a legitimate concern that companies that are maybe bigger, that have already created a scale in Western European countries could come with a competitive advantage to your markets. And there have been member states creating laws that have been breaking the internal market, for example, tax laws, you remember, Malcolm, and other local laws that are definitely against the internal market and protecting. In my view, this is a very short-term measures. The way to protect your small companies in countries that don't feel that they are competitive enough is to remove the obstacles, not to creating discrimination towards companies from other member states. It's true within the European Union, I think, and it's true also globally. But I would be happy to continue the discussion with you after this session on more individual cases if you have them. To our friend from Portugal, I can very much agree. I'm not in favor of subsidies. I am much more in favor of rewarding success. And I think that you have a political dividing line, and I would say ideological dividing line in this parliament. It is not like, member states or companies and then Brussels. In Brussels, you have good politicians and bad politicians. You have politicians who believe that we have to use taxpayers' money that doesn't exist, adding to the public debt, undermining the base for you to be credible with creditors as the only way to boost growth. I belong to those politicians who believe that we should have discipline in the public debt, and we should instead focus on removing the obstacles, the rules, the bureaucracy, the red tape, and implementing the internal market legislation that is not at the moment implementing, for instance, the service directive, the goods packages. You talked about the public procurement. The deadline was in April this year. Many member states have not yet implemented it. That would have been a great simplification. And therefore, I agree with you. Our friend from Malta, we have great expectation on the upcoming presidency. On selling online, well, geo-blocking is on my table, on our table at the moment, and it's also the issue that has been raised a lot with controversy on Article 21 of the Service Directive. I am not in favor of the obligation to sell. But the way I would like to put it is, why do we have to even discuss that? Why is it that companies feel not sufficient confidence to sell throughout this fantastic common market that we have, from Lapland to the Canary Islands? And so I would prefer to work on creating the market conditions where it does not cost more to sell a product between Sweden and Denmark in 30 kilometers than within Sweden 3,000 kilometers. And we have to look at opening the market of parcel delivery, for instance, as a way maybe to make it more attractive for companies to sell to all customers throughout Europe. To our Greek friend, I think we have a lot of understanding for the suffering of the people of Greece due to the continued economic financial crisis. I think that we have done a big part. Taxpayers of the rest of Europe have done a big part. It's not enough. I share your frustration. But the current government in Greece, if you let me be political, since I'm a member of parliament, is not really the most brilliant example that I have seen in terms of supporting opening up the market in a way that would allow the Greek companies to perform better. Naturalmente parlerò in italiano al mio collega di Parma.
Well, obviously, I'm going to have to reply in Italian to my colleague from Parma. How could I do anything other than speak Italian? I think I've already replied to the question about just how important it is when we come to logistics, and to ensure that we have an integrated logistics system in the European Union, a smart logistics system, which would then oppose the monopolistic kind of system we have at the moment. And
issues, I believe in subsidiarity. I don't think we should have minimum wages at European level. Please go and talk to the socialists, because that's the primary priority in Europe at the moment. The Swedish government has priority number one, revising the Postal Workers Directive. This is the vision for Europe. I don't know how it will help Swedish companies to export, but this is politics. It's not Brussels against member states. It's bad politics, good politics. Please influence your politicians nationally. Don't come only to Brussels to complain. Please talk to your national parliaments, talk to your national governments, make the case for the internal market at home. Because it's not only us here. This is my appeal to you. And the posters of work is just one example where we get all the blame and we are against revising it. Our German friend, lack of single market will undermine the prosperity of your children. Very well said. And we're talking about an area of freedom, not only market for companies. It's another ideological battle we are taking. There's a lot of politicians that still think that integrating the internal market, it's giving up on consumers' rights. It's only for companies. It's against consumers. Please help us in bringing forward the win-win for companies and consumer policy and vision, which is the one I believe you were talking about. I know you are cutting me, but I'm in the business of cutting red tape that our other German colleague that is in a construction company was mentioning. Yes, SMEs has to participate more in the internal market. I think you have in the parliament enormous political will. We have an SME circle, SME working group. We have an SME check in a lot of what we do in the internal in the European Parliament beyond the Internal Market Committee. And you're totally right. To our Czech colleague, I think that the issue of minimum wage for transport company, it's a big West-East divide that we have at the moment in Europe. It's very unfortunate. We need to bridge and find a way to have fair rights for the transport workers while not diminishing freedom of movement of workers from Central and Eastern Europe to the rest of Europe. I'm in favor of European citizens to be able to freely move also for work throughout Europe. The Commission has ignored the yellow card. That was wrong. We have to work together with national parliaments. They are not our enemies. They are our counterparts in ensuring a governance to the internal market that benefits the end users. That's my vision. To our Polish colleague who is dealing with Windows, I think I answered. There is this fear that big companies will take over to small companies. I don't think that the solution is protectionism. Geo-blocking, I think our Austrian colleagues has raised, I think have answered that. And we will continue to look forward to be in touch with you as it is in our tables right now. To our friend from Spain, we have to go from ideas and words to reality, more information. Let me tell you about information. We have instruments, Solvit, the Europa Portal, the alternative dispute resolution, the online dispute resolution, the enterprise network. We have a very important number of tools that have been developed over time, the internal market information system. There is definitely a lack of information, and I would appeal, if I may, to your chambers, to the national chambers of commerce, to help, to the umbrella organization, to help inform companies. Because entrepreneurs don't have time, they cannot spend hours Googling things, and it's very important, I think, a role of the umbrella organization to spread the information. There are really, nowadays you can open a company, close a company, run a company on digital platforms. And these are instruments that can really help a lot. I'm almost finishing. Il nostro collega italiano alla Confederazione
To our other Italian colleague from the Manufacturing Confederation of Italy, you mentioned the Late Payments Directive, which came in 2013. It's true that in some member states there are problems, but on the other hand, the rules are clear-cut. Public authorities have to pay between 30 and 60 days as of the date of invoicing. If that doesn't happen after the 61st day or the 31st day, depending on the case in question, then interest has to be paid, especially in Europe. As far as the payment system in Europe is concerned, a decision was made to decrease credit card charges. This is the type of initiative that we're working on to try to facilitate payments at European level and to protect small and medium enterprises. I'll go back to English.
I agree. I think it's important to recognize the CE label and to develop it and to have mutual recognition for the national labels. On the issue of food and sustainability, for instance, we have developed and we are developing, and textile also, European labels. We have a huge controversy in this House on the issue of made in, which I know is very close to some of the Italian and Southern European colleagues. The last two questions, Mr. Chairman, from Poland. The president of the Dutch Chamber, representing a Polish company. Yes, please work at national level to deal with the obstacles that are created by local legislation, regional legislation, national legislations that really are interference to the internal market. We see that now with the shared economy. We see that with the service directive, that we don't have the enforcement that would really boost the internal market due to obstacles created by national regulation, not by European regulation. And last but not least, our Spanish colleagues with the digital single market. That's what really we have on the table now. We are moving forward with portability very well. We had adopted the data protection regulation, which is not very much internal market friendly, but at least it gives the legal certainty to permit us to move forward. We are working on consumer rights, harmonization of consumer rights online, as the consumer rights directive that we took the previous mandate, unfortunately, doesn't cover the online. That's the digital single market is our priority at the moment. Internal Market Committee. It opens amazing, amazing opportunities for you. And let me finish, Mr. Chairman, by saying that the digital revolution also, in my view, has to change the way we work as politicians, recognizing in a humble way that digital entrepreneurship is much faster than politics, and that maybe we are not the ones who have the best solutions, but some entrepreneur out there right now in Europe is finding the technological solution for problems that we are not able to solve with legislation. Thank you very much. And let's...